I know that we have some people returning. If this happens to be your first time, my name is Nathan Thompson. I'm with the Rollins team in Cox Campus, and this is Jennifer.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer, and I'm also a Rollins facilitator. Thanks for joining with us today, guys. Okay, so today's priorities are as follows. Our objectives we're going to start off with, we're going to review the climate cluster elements and introduce contents cluster elements today. We're going to reflect on your experiences about the observations and the ratings that you have today. And we will determine a priority element for your site or your organization. And then lastly, we're going to practice creating a goal, set up action steps for your site level joint action plans. Okay, our norms for today are, as always, be open-minded and flexible to change. Step up and step back when needed. Be present. So if you are able to show us your beautiful faces, please do so. But if not, we understand. Respect opinions and communication styles. Listen to understand, and commit to pause and reflect throughout. So we'll have some opportunities to do that today. If you were here with us last time in February, we talked about the climate cluster, and just do a quick little recap on the climate cluster elements. This cluster is around practices that support children's socio-emotional needs for learning. So element 1 is your safe and responsive climate. This is practices that support language, learning, and use in the context of trusting and nurturing relationships. Element 2 is your culturally responsive and preserving environment. So this practices and promotes respect for all children, value and promote diversity. And then element 3, consistent routines, rituals, and transitions, practices that support children's socio-emotional development and their preparedness to learn, and through consistency and predictability throughout the day. So this supports children's emotional safety and their independence. Okay, so here on this slide, this shows the process that we follow when you are completing the ECM 2.0. And so the first one starts off with observations. Everyone should have observed at least one or more of your classrooms within your organization or your program. The next step is reflect. This is an opportunity for you to reflect on and think about your the connections and the observations, the ratings, everything that you've been enduring throughout this cohort. And then take action is the last step. So after you reflect, you'll have a chance to build an action plan that suits your organization. Okay, so at this time, we are going to have an opportunity for you to self-reflect. And so we have 2 questions on the screen here. And so we want everyone to take a moment to just take a moment and look at these 2 questions here, jot down some of your thoughts, and we'll have an opportunity for a few people to come up off mute or maybe share in the chat about your reflection. The first question is, how was your experience using the ECM 2.0? So think about that. How did it go? And then the second question is, what is your biggest need based on your ratings that you came back with on today? So please take a moment to answer these questions independently. And then when you feel comfortable, you can come up off mute or share some of those responses in the chat. And thank you. We do have the link to the previous session for you all that might have maybe missed it. You can always go back and play back the recording.
There's not really a wrong way to go about this because all the information is there on the 2.0, the ECM. So if you're taking from that and going and observing and getting a little bit of what you can see, then that's helpful. I would suggest taking time to go back and look at all of the different areas, but it does break it down by a 1, a 2, or a 3 rating. So under each one, you look to see what you're looking for. And then however the classroom fits into that, you would rate it. If it falls under a 1, falls under a 2, or falls under a 3 in each of those 3 elements that we looked at. And if you haven't had a chance to go in and rate a classroom yet, we will be going over at the latter end of this conversation what that looks like for the next set, the next cluster. So we will review what that process is. I love the questions. This is great. Thank you so much.
How do you accurately choose a rating? Does that make sense? Like with class, which I'm used to, you do the average. So how do you accurately choose a rating in this system?
So it's mostly based on what you're observing and what you know about the classroom. So you know how it has the 1, 2, and 3 sections on the ECM?
Yeah.
So if you're looking at a classroom and let's say you look at a 2, you think let's look down the 2, and they're doing some of those things occasionally, which often in the 2 it'll say occasionally or part of the time, then you can rate it as a 2 because you know, like, okay, this classroom is safe and responsive, following the things under a 2, and it's occasional. If it's not, if any of those things are not even occasional, if they're not happening at all in a given line under that 2, then I would go back to a 1 or a 1.5. So if you go back to the 1 section, then you read that and see if that matches what you're seeing, which is like it's not happening, it's rarely happening, those kind of things. But if some of the things are rarely happening and some of the things are occasionally happening, you can rate it a 2.0. And then conversely, looking at, oh, they meet all the things in a 2, it's at least occasional. Let me see if they're doing it consistently. And I'll look at the 3 and see if they meet all those things in a 3. And there's a lot, usually there's a lot to meet, and it's very consistent. So if they're meeting a 2 occasional on some things, but they really got things down with some of the other parts, then it would be a 2.5. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I just wanted to make sure I was on the right page, I guess.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like
and
you
I
are.
also put in the chat, guys, if you want to reference page 12 in your ECM document, this will help you. And thank you, Melanie, for also sharing the rating levels, which is emerging, developing, and established. So what you're looking under each column is some look-fors, some indicators, a couple of things that you should be noticing or looking for when you are doing your observations in the classroom. So like Nathan is saying, if you have a classroom that is meeting all or fulfilling all of the criteria in a particular area, then that's the rating this classroom would get based on that criteria. And if they are falling a little over, maybe spilling into some of the 3, but not quite meeting all of 3, then they're 2.5. If they are, meeting some of the things in the 2, but they're quite not there yet, then they're a 1.5. So I hope that makes sense for you guys. But we will be also, kind of digging a little deeper into that a little later on in the session. So Nathan is actually getting us warmed up for the slide you see here. So it's prioritized. So these are a few things that you want to keep in mind when you are prioritizing your elements. So based on the cluster elements that we just talked about, either safe and responsive, culturally responsive, or consistent routines and rituals, one of those 3 elements is going to be your priority element. And so you're going to choose the element with the lowest rating out of those 3. And so we just kind of tipped you guys, if an element is rated a 2 or below, then that is the priority element. But if you, for some reason, have an element that has the same rating, say for instance, you have all ones or all 1.5s or all twos, then we would encourage you to make an executive decision based on, which element out of those three, even though they're all rated the same, which one is a priority, which one is the one you want to start off supporting and improving first. So please take a brief moment now to go ahead and choose an element out of the first cluster of elements we talked about right now, and keep that at the top of your mind right now.
I'd like to also point out that if they're all rated low, it's good to look at, even when you look on the ECM, there's like a little side note in red that says priority element on some of those. So element 1 is considered a priority element, and that means that if that one is a 2 or below, no matter what the other ones are, you want to go with that one, because safe and responsive climate is a foundation for the rest of it. So if you don't have a safe and responsive climate, what we're saying there, we're suggesting that you do focus on that first. So if it's 2 or below, we're trying to get that to a 3, 2.5, 3. We're trying to get that there before we even deal with the others.
Yes. Thanks for adding that in, because that's very important. That sets the tone for the remaining elements. So keep that in mind when you are prioritizing.
Any questions about this?
Yes, Melanie. So that's the whole point of it. Strategizing and making up your action plan that works best for your sites. So this strategy that we are giving you guys is going to be most helpful. And this is the time for you to ask questions, support each other in this space, trying to figure out what is going to be the need for your site. So hopefully everybody has had a chance to choose that element, and we are going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so now we're going to plan. We're going to encourage everyone to pull out your joint action plan templates. You should have one in your ECM. We also supplied a link in the chat. So if you want to click on that link and download that and follow along with Nathan and I as we support you guys in developing the first part of your action plans. Okay, so here you see a sample plan. It's just a mock plan, just so you have an idea on what your plans should look like. Of course, everybody is going to have their own individual information plugged in, but this is basically a draft copy of what the plans will look like once they're all filled in. And so Nathan and I will take a few minutes to model how to create your plans. Okay. All right. So everybody should have a plan that looks similar to this one. And so it is fillable. And so you can type in it and be able to print it out whenever you are ready. But we're going to go ahead and model that for you guys so that you have some practice with it when you do go back to your programs. So, Nathan, are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
All right. So Nathan is a director at his program. And so we're going to support him in creating his goal and some action steps around a goal for his program. So let's get started. So Nathan, you should have had some time to think about what's your priority element. Do you have that already chosen?
Yes, I definitely had. I really felt like after I did my observations that My classrooms were really at a 1.5 in safe and responsive climate. So I know that since it's under 2 and that's so important, I'm just going to choose that as my priority element to focus on here.
Awesome, no problem. So that's your priority element. So we're gonna go ahead and plug that in our plan. So we're gonna type that in, safe and responsive climate. There we go. And from there, there's gonna be some courses that you and your staff should be enrolled in taking. So this will help with you guys learning the content and being knowledgeable around this particular element. So some of the courses that we recommend you take is Build My Brain, Power of Language, Meaningful Conversations, and Talk With Me. Those courses will, go ahead.
I saw that on the ECM, Jennifer, that those courses were the related courses. And then I think it mentions them too in the closer look. So
it sure does. Yeah.
That ties right in. Thank you.
Good. So after that, we are going to move into creating your goal. So it sounds like, safe and responsive climate is the element, but what particularly are you wanting to achieve with this element for your staff?
Well, I thought about it, and after doing this observation, I would love to see the teachers, really, honestly, all the staff in the building, having really good relationships, like a nurturing environment. Very nurturing is what I would like. So I just want to see them building those relationships in a nurturing way.
Of course, of course. So we know that the foundation of, all learning is making sure that teachers are, making those connections with their children, and they are being responsive to their interests and their needs. So I think that that's a good goal. So let's fill that out. All staff will provide nurturing relationships with children throughout the day. Good.
All right. All right.
So from there, you're gonna kind of break down that goal into some objectives, something a little bit more specific. So let's think of how we can hone in on nurturing relationships a little bit more. So what would you want your teachers to be doing specifically?
Well, I guess for that objective, I do want the teachers to make the connections with children, specifically by responding to their interests and the ideas that the children have. So really tapping into the children's interests and responding to the children, making those connections.
Good. Okay, so we can have an objective that's around teachers making connections with children by responding to their interests and ideas. So I think that can be observable, that can definitely be measurable. And in order for us to do that, we have to have some action steps so that when you're going in the classrooms, when other people are visiting, they're going to be able to see that. They're going to see teachers make connections. So what would be a first step for us in doing that?
Well, obviously, I just think the courses would come first, right? I think
of course, yeah.
I need to get them started on these courses.
Complete those courses, enroll in those courses, and get started. Just getting knowledgeable in the content and knowing why you're doing what you need to do. So starting off with coursework is always the first place that you want to start. If you do have teachers that are familiar with Cox Campus and have already started taking those courses, that's always a plus as well. So they can continue reviewing. But if you have staff that has never done this, then definitely get involved on Cox Campus and get into those courses. Good start. Next, after they've been a little bit well versed in the content, what's the next step for your staff, Nathan?
Well, once they've taken the course, especially that Talk With Me course for the infants and toddlers, and that Meaningful Conversations course for those preschool and pre-K teachers, I want them to do it. I want them to do it in the classroom. Practice the talk and the Talk With Me during their daily routines, and and just greetings and that kind of thing. Yeah. Personal care routine.
Gotcha. So I'm hearing you want teachers to implement, practice, really get into practice of, doing those daily routines with their children. And then I also included some examples of times of the day that they can practice, because we want to be specific on when to do those things. Sometimes teachers need to know when and how often. And so you want to include that in the action steps. Okay, good. So from the practice, what do you want them to do next after they've practiced these strategies?
Well, I noticed that on Cox campus there's a fidelity form for these practices. So
Yeah,
honestly,
there is.
that would be my next step, that they go back and they fill out fidelity form. I can check it. They're reflecting on it. So recording what they're doing, filling out fidelity form, and just reflecting so that we can be better. I don't actually have someone at my site who can constantly be coaching, but I can, give them that opportunity to reflect on their practices by giving them the fidelity form, explaining it to them. Maybe we can come together and talk about it. So if they take just for this year, I'm going to give them till September, and I really want them to take that course, practice it in the classroom, and then reflect on it so they can build from it. And then maybe from then I can build some teams where they're kind of mentoring each other, see who gets it first, and then work on that. But I think these would be my first 3 steps to really hone in on that goal and help them along.
Good, good, awesome. So I think that those are all really great action steps to have for your staff. It sounds like it's very digestible, doesn't sound too overwhelming, and it's clear cut. So teachers know exactly what they need to do, and they'll definitely have your support because you've, set the tone, you know exactly where your teachers are, and you know what they can handle. So right now, I'm just going to go ahead and plug in some of the resources that you mentioned needing access for. So I'll plug that in the column that says, what do we need? All of these things can be found on Cox campus, free. Everything is completely free. And then you also want to put who's responsible. And then you want to set those timelines, something that's, definitely realistic. So it sounds like you want to get started now, and then you're giving them up until early fall to continue working through this plan here, which is, I think it's a very feasible plan for your staff. So thanks, Nathan. Good job.
All right. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about that process that we just modeled? Anything come up? Any thoughts around how that might look for you, for your site? Who would be a part of this conversation?
Did any questions come up or any ideas, maybe scenarios come up for anyone while we were modeling this process for you?
Oh, I see, Melanie, you did make commentary. Thank you so much for pointing us to that. Yeah, I see, have some nonverbal children. I wonder if they'd be considered as dual language learners. They use sign language and nonverbal cues. Okay, that is a different approach because they have that. Typically, we consider dual language learners if they have a different language at home, like their first language with their family. But that definitely is something to look at as well. Children who are nonverbal. I guess, can I ask, are they nonverbal? What age, or are they just not verbal yet? Or are they nonverbal children? That would be my question there. Okay. So yeah, so they're just not developmentally not verbal. Yeah, definitely consider some of the ideas from dual language learners, especially the supports like pictures and giving supports that they can use. Like if you're using some sign language, then that would be a support. So in a sense, there is a very close similarity because you're still supporting what you're trying to say. If I'm talking to someone in English and they mostly understand Spanish, then I'm giving supports to help with the English. So thank you for asking about that. Yes. And we will get into the DLLs, the dual language learners, even more, and some of those supports as we move into the different clusters. And you also mentioned that you think the action plan is definitely a joint effort. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. Do you have someone that you can join together at your particular school to work on this with? Or does anyone else want to share? Is it a possibility to have a couple of people or a team, even maybe some veteran teachers to join in on this, putting together a plan? Okay, multiple teachers come together. Nice.
Good.
I love it.
Okay. Well, we hope that modeling experience was helpful to everyone. And we do want you all to feel comfortable to, ask questions, chime in at any point. If there's something that doesn't sound clear or is not possible at your site, we want to talk about, alternatives and options for your program to still be able to participate in this process. So feel free to reach out to us. So we have instructional coaches and Kimber. Yeah, it takes a team. It does. And we want you to, bite off what you can handle. So, if it's too much with multiple elements to work on at a time, pick one, at a time. Get comfortable with just that one element. And when you, feel good about it, choose another element from a different cluster and, build on it as time progresses and as your team gets comfortable doing the work, because it's definitely, like Melanie mentioned, a joint effort. Everybody's got to be able to pull their weight so that it can work.
And I'd like to say to Denise Perez about the instructional coaches, since you have that capability and you have someone in place that can do that, I don't know if they've taken the courses yet, but we do have coaching courses and a coaching course for leaders on Cox campus. So those are actually really helpful in this process, because even beyond setting a joint action plan, the next step is to meet with teachers and set specific plans for classrooms. So that's something that we're not covering in this kind of site-wide ecosystem, but it's something we can talk about and something that you can dig deeper into, because if you have that staff on site that can really help the teachers set their individual goals, we have a whole process for that as well. And those coaching courses help support that. And that could be a goal for your site, is that all leaders and coaches take the coaching courses, the ecosystem course, and start, preparing those support individuals to go in and support the teachers. So thank you for bringing that up as well.
Linda has a comment.
Oh, thank you, Linda. Let's see. Oh, yes. If the family speaks another language, including ASL, we consider them dual language learners. Okay. If the home language is English, there may be speech pathologists, doctors involved if the child is over 3. And then suggestion of visuals and modeling is a great course of action. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to keep this moving along. So Nathan's going to pick us up with the content cluster, which is the new cluster to add to our cohort today.
All right. So now we're into the second cluster. If you had a chance to observe the first cluster, and if you were with us last time, you'll know this process, but I do want to make sure we recap it for those who are with us and then also introduce it for those who are not here. We talked a little bit about it while we were discussing and reflecting today, but this is what the process is like for going through the clusters and doing your observations. So the element children as conversational partners, that one in particular are practices that create opportunities for children to extend their learning, hear and practice vocabulary, and deepen their comprehension of concepts throughout the instructional day. The next one is integrated planning and teaching around an anchor book, and those support language support for language use for communication, the development of oral language, vocabulary and comprehension, critical thinking, as they have storybook read alouds. And then for the focus on emergent literacy, the main focus for infants and toddlers is going to be around rhyming and that kind of thing. But for the preschool and pre-K, definitely the phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and those kinds of things. So we'll talk a little more detail about each one, what we're looking for, and how to assess. All right, so we're going back to a closer look at the ecosystem elements document, which we looked at from the beginning, and in there it breaks down what it looks like. So for the first one around conversational partners, for planning, it gives you all these examples in that document. So you'll, take a chance, look over this, because this gives you more detail than the ECM to support what the ECM is looking for. So this is definitely at an established, at a 3, this is what it would look like. Those lesson plans, what the classroom environment looks like when you walk into the classroom. What are you looking for in the adults? What are you looking for in the children? That kind of thing. So this is, and we have the link in the chat. So please take time to look over this before you go in the classroom. And even as you're reflecting on your classrooms, this is really helpful. All right. All right, so we're gonna watch this little short video and I want you to tell me what you notice. We are looking for that talk, conversational partners. This is an older toddler classroom. So let's take a moment and watch this video. I love this video.
I think that's going to be too much, and then you will have a stomach ache if you get Pfizer. Exactly.
Just like the caterpillar.
Just like the caterpillar. In the hungry caterpillar. Yes, just like the hungry caterpillar. He ate so much food that he had a stomach ache. Do you want a stomach ache?
No.
So that means we only can have a little serving, okay? Can you tell me what happened when the hungry caterpillar got the stomach ache? What happened?
And then he ate the leaf.
And he ate the leaf. And how did the leaf make him feel?
Yummy!
You made him feel
yummy! And then he was so big, like a giant.
And yes, he was a very big caterpillar. He wasn't a small caterpillar anymore. And then what did he do after he finished eating the leaf?
He pushed his way out.
No, there was another step that happened.
A chrysalis.
He went inside his chrysalis.
Yes,
And he slept inside his chrysalis. And then
he
what happened?
turned into a butterfly.
He did. And what is that process called when a caterpillar turned into a butterfly?
Metamorphosis.
You're right. It's metamorphosis. He went through the metamorphosis process. Exactly. Thank you. Metamorphosis.
All right. What did you notice? Very interactive and descriptive. Yes. What kind of learning is going on? What are they learning as they're just having a conversation during lunchtime? They did soak it all in, yes.
Yep. Excitement, respecting each other's answers. Tier 3 words, absolutely.
Metamorphosis.
Taking turns in conversation. Yep. And that's pretty hard sometimes for toddlers to take turns. So that was impressive. Vocabulary, they were engaged. Yep. They recalled some events.
And she made sure that everybody's conversation was listened to, which is always
That's right, respecting everyone's responses,
Yeah.
giving everyone a chance to chime in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful video. I love seeing that every time I see it.
Nathan and Jennifer, I have a comment.
Yes.
It's too long to put in the chat. You know, one of the things that I'm really on a tear about is this idea of, and it is one of the courses that you offer, but it's on building world knowledge, and with that comes building word knowledge.
Mhm.
And all of the comments and things like that I was seeing in the chat and hearing y'all say is proof that these are some of the things that we have to do. And there's a wonderful book by Natalie Wexler. I don't know if y'all are familiar with her, but she does a lot of work in the field, especially as a journalist. And she talks in one book about the knowledge gap. So this was a fabulous example of toddlers, older twos, with some very, very good world and word knowledge.
And word. Yeah.
Yeah, which is that idea is that a lot of our children are behind, especially when it comes to reading comprehension, because they don't have that world knowledge. So this is a way to, I know that comes in usually with the preschool pre-K strands, but this was a perfect example of a teacher really pushing in and pulling out a lot of that world knowledge, the chrysalis and metamorphosis, and I mean, goodness gracious. It just makes my heart smile. So hope teachers are doing that.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
It makes my heart smile too. That's a really beautiful way to put it. And I think I sit here and I watch every time I watch it. I just think about it. It's there's so much going on there, and I'm thinking about the opposite of seeing like flashcards or something and trying to get them to learn metamorphosis. Like, we really got to learn metamorphosis. But they read this book. It came up because you're going to eat too much and get full, and like the caterpillar. Oh, look, it's like the caterpillar. I just put myself in that caterpillar's shoes, even though they don't wear shoes. But it gives you that perspective taking. It gives you that opportunity, and at such a young age, I could go on and on. It's beautiful. Thank you. And in the ecosystem course, I interviewed the teacher and the little girl. So I don't know if you all remember that, but that was part of one of the Nathan Thompson live show in the course. And I got to meet the little girl. She's older now, and they're still kind of connected, and they have a relationship. So there's relationships that came out of that. There's learning. It's amazing. All right. So I'll go on to the next thing. I will say that, can we go back one slide? Sorry. I just talked off topic a little bit. So in this slide, this is just a reminder. I know we talked about this a little bit, but this is just a reminder of what it looks like in the ECM, where you're doing those look fors, the descriptions there, the Cox Campus courses, but yes, the 1 and the 2 and the 3, this is what it looks like. Just a visual reminder for you guys. So taking this with you in the classroom when you're observing is helpful. All right, we can go to the next slide. All right, so the next thing is that integrated planning and teaching around an anchor book. And we can go to the next slide. Okay, this is what it looks like in the closer look document. It gives you that planning the environment, planning an environment, the teachers, and then those interactions from teachers. Really taking the time to plan around an anchor book, a book that anchors the curriculum, and then having activities around it. And even bringing it up during lunchtime, like we saw in the video. Those opportunities are so important. Sometimes I see teachers take 30 minutes to read a book and try to cover everything that all the ins and outs of the concepts in the book and the vocabulary, and spend a lot of time on it. And I always tell the teachers that do that, and the guidance I give is, those are great things to be talking about. However, you can spread that throughout the day and do that in activities. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. All right. And so this is one way that you can plan. It's called a bubble map. If you haven't seen it, you can look them up on Cox Campus. Just search bubble map. There's a bubble map template. It's fillable. So this is something that you can plan, ways to plan very specific parts of the day. You can consider, I think even here you see bold words. Those are words that they want to focus on with vocabulary. So for art, family connections, morning transitions, songs and finger plays, block areas, and so on and so forth, you can have more bubbles if you want. And this is all around this Bezos for baby and families, babies everywhere. So it's kind of like the book is the theme that provides the theme or the study or whatever you want to call it. So that middle section is that book, that anchor book. All right, we can go to the next one. All right, so this is another reminder of what it looks like, the ones, the twos, and the threes. Definitely want to go to that when you're observing and make sure you look at these different areas. All right. And so the last one in this cluster is focus on emergent literacy. This one, as you can see in the next slide, there are sections. One section is around infants and toddlers, because this looks different. In the infants and toddlers, you can use the tip strategy when reading, those rhyme, those rhythm books. You can sing songs. You can explore concepts of print in informal ways. Like, can you help me turn the page? Oh, the book is upside down. Let's turn it around. And then offer older toddlers more opportunities to explore letters and alphabet through play. So this kind of paints the picture for you of what it looks like for infants and toddlers. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, this one, there's a lot of information on this one, but it breaks down phonological awareness, alphabet knowledge, concepts of prints, and emergent writing. So there's a lot involved here, and it's a little bit different, obviously, for preschool and pre-K, but focusing on those areas will prepare them, those foundations of learning to read. All right, next slide. All right, let's watch this example of it's a little short example of concepts of print in the classroom.
Are you ready? Let's start on the left.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Help me.
A.
Mm-hmm.
D.
Mm-hmm.
R. S. O. N.
Awesome. Okay, so the next word I'm gonna write, Madison Drew. But you know what I need to do? I need to put a space so people know that it's a separate word. So I'm gonna put my finger here so that I have a space. So Madison Drew. I'm gonna write Drew. And then I'm gonna come back to the left, just like we do when we read. And I'm gonna keep writing. You are so smart. So I'm gonna keep writing my sentence. Madison Drew a. And I have to put another space because I'm writing a new word. Picture. Madison drew a picture of a flower and Miss Kate.
What did you all notice in that video?
one thing that I noticed, hi, everybody, was that she was very explicit, you know, with what she was doing. She was using self-talk, you know, just to depict what she was doing in that setting for that activity.
Mhm.
Yes, very explicit. As she modeled, she continued to be really explicit. Yeah.
Yep, and she's reading. Thank you, Miss Beverly, for pointing that out. So there are different levels of reading, and for her age, she is reading. She's, you know, she's following along. She's reading left to right. The teacher is stating what she's doing while she's doing it. So that's that self and parallel talk, and she's modeling how we read from left to right. So showing her how to sound out the words. Yep, that's right.
And modeling writing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right.
Yep. And concepts of print.
Concepts of print.
Yep. So all of our words have meaning when they, you know, are written on paper. So showing children that our words, our actions can be written. So
Yeah. All right. So this is what it looks like on the ECM 2.0. Again, it's that green section, that the last one in this cluster. And you'll use this, the 1s, 2s, and 3s, to see what you're looking for and rate your classroom. All right, we'll go to the next one. And then this is a reminder of the observation form. So in the ECM 2.0 document is this observation form that you can print out and use for each classroom. So you can go in and write down your notes. As you're looking at the last page we looked at, looking at what you see, you can write notes of what you saw. And then kind of put your rating. You can go back and reflect. It is important to note that what you see and say you sit in a classroom for an hour may not cover everything. So what you know about the classroom or going back and observing certain parts of the day are still important. You can bring this back with you and say, oh, I got to come back and see when they're reading books, if they're actually, you know, that maybe they're planning around books, they've got this bubble map, they're planning, but are they doing these activities? Are they doing their reads with fidelity and consistency and that kind of thing? So that will give you that perspective, and you can go back and take these notes. So it's something to kind of have with you as you go through the classrooms, and let the teachers know, show them all this stuff. Like, this is the stuff I'm looking for. These are the things I'm going to be helping support you with. So I'm going to look at these things so I can see where we have the best support, because we do focus on the outcomes of the children as our number one goal. So letting them know we want to see the children succeed in their outcomes. And so I'm going to support you with these areas. There's also a couple of other formats of this in the appendix of the ECM 2.0. All right.
okay. So we are at the recap moment where we have had some time to self-reflect. We shared some of our experiences with each other in the chat and coming up off mute. We prioritized and chose an element for our sites. You guys got to hear me and Nathan model how that's done. So we want you guys to take that practice back to your programs and finish out your plans. You did get a chance to see a goal created and action steps on a joint action plan. So we hope that you guys are somewhat prepped and ready to do this on your own. But if not, you always have Nathan and myself to reach out to and join us at the next meeting. So we're gonna go into next steps. Okay, so your next steps are as follow. We want you to complete that joint action plan and start beginning some of those action steps as you create them. Continue assessing your classroom. Now, this time the focus is going to be around the second cluster. So the content clusters, we want you to take some time in and assess and rate those classrooms. And then you want to bring those ratings back to the March meeting, not the March, should have been our April meeting. And then we also want you to bring your joint action plans back to the next meeting so that we can continue building and developing together. Thank you all. We look forward to seeing you at the next session. Please take some time and visit our Facebook page, Twitter, and LinkedIn page, and share all your experiences with your colleagues and let them know that you are experiencing a great cohort right now and improving your sites and programs with Rollins Cox Campus. Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a great
Thanks,
afternoon.
everyone.